Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance.
Richie Scanelli is the unofficial mayor of Winthrop, Massachusetts. Most days you can find him at Nick's Place, the local sub shop, where he works long hours. But once a year, he climbs the austere granite steps of the State House to celebrate his birthday with his dear and old friend, the Speaker of the House. Richie, who has intellectual disabilities, has known Robert DeLeo for decades. Their birthday tradition began when the Speaker was a Winthrop selectman. Both men are fixtures in this tight-knit seaside community 4 miles north of Boston. When Richie was attacked and beaten 6 years ago, when he was mocked with the R word, the Speaker's outrage was public and palpable. "I am just so angry and upset," he said at the time. It's this emotion, teamed with hard work and commitment, that has made Speaker DeLeo one of the Commonwealth's most effective advocates on behalf of people with special needs. As a constituent for 10 years, I was able to fully understand the benefits of being represented by someone who cares deeply and passionately about his district. Time and time again, I witnessed the devotion returned by the many, many people who think of him more as Bob or Bobby than Mr. Speaker. Long before he became involved in politics, Speaker DeLeo donated his legal services to the Revere League of Disabilities, and he later joined the Winthrop chapter. He was motivated by two strongly held beliefs. First, everyone deserves an equal shot. And second, individuals with special needs are far more capable than people understand them to be. As a newly elected representative, he challenged a popular governor who sought to save money by reducing special education funding for local communities. He testified himself, conveying in stark and vivid language the pain of families fighting for services. That plan was shelved. To this day, people remember his testimony. "These kids know who their friends are," reflected the Speaker recently, "and they know I'm their friend." Their friend came through again during the 2008 recession. As then Chairman of Ways and Means, Representative DeLeo dug a moat around key funding sources, despite the bleakest fiscal outlook since the Great Depression. "These line items we never want to cut," he instructed a freshman on the committee. "What lines?" the new legislator asked. "The line items for people with disabilities." But funding is just the beginning for Speaker DeLeo. He takes a holistic approach to empowering people with disabilities and offering them greater opportunities to thrive. He sees gaps and he works to fill them. He sees injustices and he fights to eliminate them. Healthcare, education, self-determination, these are priorities for him. Thanks to his efforts, the R word is no longer found in Massachusetts state law. Individuals with disabilities can create their own service plans. Private insurance is prohibited from discriminating against individuals with autism, regardless of age. And the state's own health insurance program for low-income families is now required to cover medically necessary treatment for children with autism. The Autism Omnibus Bill also expanded eligibility under the Department of Developmental Services. Adults with autism, Prader-Willi, and Smith-Magenis syndrome now have a place at the table. And families have a new financial tool in the form of tax-free savings accounts to cover disability-related expenses. The 191st General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts started its session earlier this year with a charge from the Speaker to engage in a thoughtful discussion about ensuring the physical and mental well-being of all the Commonwealth children. He began by introducing a bill that would help kids aging out of foster care obtain health insurance. It would also establish a pilot program with regional centers of excellence in children's behavioral health. A side history lesson for those of you not from New England. The Massachusetts legislature is called the General Court. It's a holdover from colonial days when the body made laws and served as an appeals court. The General Court has been meeting in some form or fashion since 1629. All this to say, especially to our friends from the West who probably find our antiquated ways amusing, Speaker DeLeo presides over a very old chamber, although he himself dates only to the mid-20th century. As Bobby Kennedy was wrapping up his Ripple of Hope speech, he recalled the legacy of his slain brother. President Kennedy, he said, reinforced that there is no basic inconsistency between ideals and realistic possibilities. No separation between the deepest desires of the heart and mind and the rational application of human effort to human problems. Colleagues and friends, that is Speaker Robert DeLeo's approach to governing and to living, and he has applied it devotedly and expertly to the causes of people with disabilities. It's why we honor him tonight. Speaker DeLeo, you are a ripple of hope.
Wow. What remarks. I didn't realize you had pictures and we had everything here this evening. And to Bruce, congratulations on your years. William, congratulations on your selection. If you're going to come to Boston, you got to lose that accent. I must tell you, what an unbelievable, Dwight, I can't thank you enough for those unbelievable words. Sorry to see you left with. If that was such a good rep, why did you leave? But in any ways, thank you for that unbelievable introduction. I mean that. We've known each other for many, many years, been involved in various campaigns and other things, and thank you so much for those unbelievable words. I greatly appreciate it. And what an honor it is to receive this award. And it's unbelievable in terms of the Mentor Network, providing services to over 30,000 people in some 36 states, helping individuals of all abilities thrive in their homes and in communities. Your work takes devotion, humanity, and kindness, and thank you for all that you do. I'm sure that my being on here tonight pales in comparison to the folks here to my left, or many of you here in the audience, in terms of what you do day in and day out. But standing up for those people with disabilities and other vulnerable populations has not only been a top priority during my tenure in the legislature, it is an issue that has inspired me, taught me about the true purpose about being a public official, and allowed me to meet remarkable individuals. Yes, folks, I think that helping those with disabilities has made me a better state legislator, and I think it's made me a better person as well. Whether it's in my own district, as was Dwight had mentioned, being part of the special needs organizations in both Winthrop and Revere. And we have provided some multiple pieces of legislation. And I had some other items here to talk about in terms we did, but I think Dwight did an unbelievable job in terms of talking about them. than I could ever talk about. But it was interesting to note some of the things he noted that when I first got into the legislature, I was in there for 3 months. And I can remember one of the things that I was told was really, you should be quiet for at least a year. Well, I saw a governor at the time who had an interest in changing our 766 laws here in Massachusetts. And I decided, well, after 3 months, I've been here long enough. I don't think I can shut up and let this happen in our Commonwealth. And I can remember my very first speech in front of some 2,000 people in so-called Gardner Auditorium in the State House, when I got up and I talked about the children who have special needs in terms of their educational opportunities. And one of the things that I mentioned was the fact that these children are not looking for a better education or anything more than a so-called regular education child could get. They just want, they don't want a better playing field, they just want an equal playing field. And I can remember that to this day in terms of looking out into the audience and feeling so strongly about an issue. And you know, it's also interesting to note that some years back, a reporter came into my office and said to me, Mr. Speaker, you know, I see outside you have a picture with President Barack Obama, as well as some other presidents. He says, I presume being called by the President of the United States to come to Washington to talk about health care, just the two of you, is probably one of the greatest thrills of your life. And I says, I hate to disappoint you. It was a great thrill. It's always a great thrill to meet presidents. But being able to help a mother who came into my office crying because she couldn't afford to pay, or her husband couldn't afford to pay their mortgage and other household needs because of the bills that were incurred of her 2 children who had autism. And changing the law in Massachusetts so that every child with autism, that their expenses would be covered, that was one of the greatest thrills of my role as Speaker of the House, with all due respect to the President of the United States. But I think it's something which I've, from the very first day that I walked into the State House, and something that I still believe in today, after all of these years. We need to ensure that every resident has the same opportunity as everyone else, whether it's to learn, to work, to live, or to thrive here in Massachusetts and throughout this country for that matter. I'm looking forward to continuing that work with all of you here today to make sure that that happens. And with that, I sincerely want to congratulate, again, all of the awardees here tonight, who I'm sure are much more deserving of this award than am I. But I sincerely want to thank you, and I mean this, all of you, and all of you here today who are in the work to help those who need the help, because that's what governing is all about. That's what I look at governing is about. That old saying is that we have to help those who need it the most, who can't help themselves, that we have to be there to be helped. So with that, I sincerely want to thank you for this award. It's an honor for me to be here this evening. Thank you, and God bless everyone.